Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? Let's get their picture up. Put that on the screen. There we go. Now we're ready. Good morning, everybody. How you doing? Tuesday. It's Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? Yeah, it's Tuesday. No, is it Wednesday? Wow, it's Wednesday. I lost an entire day. I guess I want to keep doing this an extra day this week. It's Wednesday. Welcome, everybody. Wow, the day's going by. Thank you very much for joining. This is day 500. Okay, day 500. Let me go make sure the banner says the right number there. Good morning. Good morning. Day 500. It does. Wonderful. I want to make sure that's correct. So good morning, everybody. So we have Donald coming back today. We have Granny coming back today. And we have another guest coming on today to talk about the law with us. And I am very happy that you're joining us. We're getting amazing messages all over the internet from this Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. Sorry about my little screen there. Let me just hit a knob here. See if that settles down. So it's wonderful. So I want to make sure everybody knows that on Friday, this Friday, if you're friends and family of these men, reach out. Go into my Twitter, hit the DM. If you know Granny, reach out. Try and get a hold of either one of us because we would like to bring you on. You can come on and send a message to the men. Let us know a bit about them. But Friday's episodes, Friday is the end of the week for your friends. Well, Friday is going to be the end of the week for our friends and family of the men. So make sure you tune into that one. And if you are one that would like to get on the show, you're a friend or family, you knew the men before, you met them during, there's a relationship there, reach out and we'll get you on the show. And if you're a lawyer, please reach out. I'm a paralegal from Ontario. I do have lawyer friends, and I'm having a hard time getting somebody to come on just to talk to us. We're not trying to retain a lawyer. We're not trying to represent the men in any way, shape, or form. What we want to do is make sure that our little thing here that we're doing, separate from the men, but addressing what the men are going through, has additional lawyer advice on it. It's not an opinion. It's not legal, legally an opinion or anything like that. But we definitely wanted to get some more people on here to talk about it. And today we're going to be looking over things like the media, how they're dealing with it. We'll start talking about the evidence, and we'll start taking a look at the nitty-gritty stuff. And then tomorrow's episode, please join for that one as well. So Thursday, we're going to have Pastor Snowy here. He's my pastor from my church, and he also works in the correctional facilities in Edmonton. So he works with gentlemen all the time, goes around sharing the gospel, meeting with them, encouraging them, understanding their stories. So he's taking a look at what's going on. He's probably watching this right now. Hey, Pastor. And we'll be talking to him on Thursday. So be looking forward to that. So for the next 3 days, today we got some law. We're going to break down some of the media stuff with Donald and another guest. Tomorrow it's going to be Pastor Snowy and possibly another guest as well, talking about life inside and what they could be expecting and how it could become better for them, and just get some more information on what it's like to live in there, and possibly even have pastor reach out to them in some way. But in either case, we're going to learn about life in the correctional facilities here in Alberta. And then on Friday, we're going to meet a lot more friends and family. And then next week, I'll announce, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they're going to be reviewing the case and focusing on that. And then every Friday, we'll have friends and family come back. So that's going to be what we're working on, putting together for you all. Because the information needs to get out. These guys have been spending, 500 days today in lockup. So let's not forget them. Let's actually make sure that they're there. Padge, go ahead. If you want to put a couple chats on there, that's fine. Oh, good morning, Clay. Thank you very much, buddy. Nice to see you. And Donald, I'm going to bring you in because I just saw you put your coffee to your lips, so you can join Clay and I as well and have a sip of coffee.
Well, good morning. Good morning, everybody. I thought now that I'm, right in the act of drinking, you'll put me on screen, and you did.
That's right. That is the sign.
You are a terrible person.
There's two ways to get on the screen quickly. Pick up a cup of something and start to drink, or have a tissue in your hand and do that, and then I'll get you on the screen. There you go. Look at that.
There we go.
I'm a veteran now. So thank you very much, Donald, for making it. And so we got to chat a little bit before the show starts. We like to check the mics, make sure that we're looking good. And I see that your protesting beard's coming in. So you're going to keep that going until they're free, or what are you doing there?
You know what? Maybe I will.
Yeah, no, I'm going to keep going. I might trim around the mouth just for eating, but Hello. Hello. I'm going to bring Trevor in.
Awesome.
Great.
Hey, Trevor. How you doing?
Good.
Morning,
Thank
Trevor.
you. Awesome. Good morning, Donald, Jason.
Yeah, good morning. So Trevor is our new Twitter friend, internet friend, who's been commenting on our stuff, and he has some really great takes. And yeah, so I thought, hey, Trevor, we want to talk a little bit about the law. We're not looking for opinions. We're not looking for you to defend these guys. We just want to go talk. We're here to talk about things about this situation, Canadian law, federal, provincial, whatever we can cover. So thank you, Trevor. And if you don't mind, why don't you just say hello to everybody and let them know who you are?
Oh, sure. My name's Trevor Holsworth. I do fundamental justice on Twitter, and I'm kind of bringing the government to account on some legal and political matters.
All right. So your handle's fundamental, like you're called fundamental justice. You got rule of law as your handle. So you definitely understand what you're talking about when you're going out there commenting. And what I've noticed some of your comments is just you're not cutting and you're not rude about it. You're very good at articulating your take on the law. And I said there, I said your take because the law can be interpreted. It's not necessarily super cut and dry sometimes. So I appreciate that take that you have there. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you bet.
No, go ahead. You can say something if you want.
Yeah, it's a curious thing. We're talking about evidence is kind of what the law is supposed to do, is find the truth, the pursuit of the truth, and that's kind of what we're interested in this case here as well, is what's going on, what's the reality for Canadians, what can we expect out of our legal system. And I encountered a judge that when I presented the transcript of a hearing to prove that a lawyer had fudged a court order, I produced the transcript for the judge, and he didn't really want to hear what the transcript said, so he called up the plaintiff and asked her what she had heard a judge say 7 months ago, and preferred that to the transcript to protect her lawyer committing fraud. So I kind of know that and then I complained about the conduct. And the Judicial Council said that conduct is okay for a judge. So the best evidence in Canada isn't sufficient to convince a judge that a lawyer is committing fraud. And so I know that the law can be molded and judges can adjust evidence to fit what they want.
Okay, yeah, that's very true, and I think Donald, you can actually attest to that one. That the judges have a lot of power on what can come in and what cannot, what stays out, right?
Oh, they sure do. And before Granny gets on, I just want to say I've been to Trevor's website, looked it over. It's really good. His experience mirrors mine and so many of other Canadians, where we've detected real misconduct within the justice system, and they just circle the wagons. And the other thing I noticed about your website, Trevor, is, like me, you're an evidence guy. You collect evidence, you present it, you know how to do that. Sometimes the system just refuses to look at it, but you appreciate the value of good evidence. That's what I came away from your website, with that understanding. So good to have you aboard.
Well, thanks, Donald. It's been nice hearing you talk. And actually, your website was one of the first that I found about 2 years ago when I was starting to investigate the legal system and corruption, and I came across your story. And that certainly inspired me too, Donald. Thank you.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Small world. Good morning, Granny. So we're here to talk about evidence today. We got a couple of gentlemen who know what they're talking about. And then there's this guy with a hat as well. So hopefully this team's coming together and you're happy about this.
I am thrilled. I spoke with Chris, Jerry, Tony, and Chris last night, and I've shared all four. I speak to them regularly. These guys are my boys now. Like, they are literally my family. I love them dearly. So I told them all about you guys. I told them that you topped up their phone credits, and they were thankful, and they do say thank you. And if they could give you all a hug, they would. They're extremely nice men. Like I'm the lucky one. They keep saying thank you, and I keep saying the journey I've been on, I feel blessed to be that person. I said, I don't know how I ended up here, but I'm here. And now I'm with you guys. So this is great.
Yeah, I think there might be some guiding going on, bringing us all together. I think it's lovely. Yeah, there's a reason why we're all meeting each other and finding each other. So that's great news. And thank you for keeping them up to date as well. I do appreciate that. There's a way to talk to them with you, Granny, and I appreciate that a lot.
Yes.
Okay, so Donald, did you want to kind of start? You've been looking at the evidence, and what I put on Twitter is we'll be looking at evidence, but what we've got really is very slim, and we do have one picture of a table with more questions than answers on it. So I kind of want to start maybe around there and see what you've been sleuthing and checking out.
Well, I'm going to take us a little different place today. Okay. Yes, I'm going to talk about evidence, but I'm also going to talk about judicial misconduct. And I'm going to talk about misconduct by lawyers and law firms, a certain type of misconduct. But we're going to start today with what we know about the case and how we know it. So how do we know what we know about the case? Well, Granny, she's spoken to the accused persons, and she's not going to tell us what they said, what the evidence is from their side, and neither are the defense lawyers. They're not going to tell us either, because, of course, they asked for and got everything sealed, so that it can't be reported. And I understand the reason for that. And if you join me on Google right now, and you put in, well, let's put in Anthony Olenek. Am I pronouncing that name?
Olenek, yes.
Olenek? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, I've put it in to Google, and this is what we see. First thing, we get a CBC News article, man accused of plot to murder Mounties sold his home. Then we get trial delayed for men accused of conspiring to murder. And then we get some photos taken from news stories. And then the alleged plot to kill Coutts RCMP officers. Coutts accused back in court. RCMP believes others were giving orders at Coutts. Oh, isn't that interesting? And some Coutts protesters wanted to alter Canada's political system. Oh, of course they did. Don't we all?
Yeah.
But that leaves the impression that they were willing to kill to do that. And so you get where I'm going here. Man charged with conspiracy to murder at Alberta border. And accused in Coutts murder plot allegedly spent months planning it. Now, that's just the first page. And it goes on and on and on. And you know what's not there? What's not there is Granny Mackay's Facebook page. What's not there is anything positive about these accused. There are no stories about who they really are, their background. Do they have any families? What do they do for a living? Are they all nefarious creatures that sprang out of the night with their evil plot that brought them all together? Well, that's all you see here. And there's a message that is delivered in what's there and what's not there. Now, why is that important? It's important for a couple of reasons. First of all, anybody who gets called to the courthouse to serve jury duty this year, next year, last year, they all do the same thing. They sit there at the kitchen table with their cup of coffee and they say, I really don't want to go in today, dear. Or maybe they're looking forward to it. And they say, I wonder if I'll get, what was the name of that case? You know, those guys that are charged with murdering a police officer at the Alberta border? See, they've already got it wrong. And then they go to Google and they look it up exactly as we did now. This is normal. This happens all over the place. Now, when they get to the courthouse, the judge is going to say to the jury a number of things about how the trial works and what they're supposed to do, what they're not supposed to do. I think he probably won't sequester them in a hotel room with guards. I don't think for this level of case. Maybe he will for certain murder cases and such. They will put the jurors away in a hotel, not let them speak to anyone, not let them use the phones. They may take their cell phones away from them because they don't want them Googling the case in the middle of jury duty. There are jurors who have gone to jail for exactly that, for coming in the morning and saying, you know, I looked up that intersection last night in Google, and telling the other members of the jury, and that should be reported. Why? Because jurors and judges are only supposed to consider the evidence before them. And that was manageable, I guess, before the days of the internet. But now, when you have jurors able to go online and see these headlines, and before that picture of the rifles and such is even presented to them, they say to each other or to themselves, wow, did you see all those weapons? And there's nothing to counter that. Nothing to counter that at all. Or is there? And that's why the reality of working with a court case, having a court case these days in civil court or in even family court, criminal court, the reality of having a case is that people are going to look online to find out information about the case. So, Granny, your Facebook page, which is a very positive influence and would balance a little bit all of that propaganda that we're seeing from the prosecution. That isn't even 4 pages down when I looked last night. I couldn't even find it on Google. Now, there's ways, first of all, there's not a lot of people talking about this case. It's absent in the media. A couple of reasons for that. I think one of them is that the media can't talk about the evidence, so it's not interesting to them. They'd only want quick hits. The other thing is people don't even realize they're still in jail, and I think Jason and some other people touched on that these past few days. People don't realize they're in jail. So there should be, to balance it out, there could be, if more people knew, there would be something to balance that terrible list of headlines. There might be an article about, or a video about what kind of guys these are. There might be a discussion, as we're going to get to next week, about the allegations that the RCMP planted evidence. So there might be that discussion, but none of that is there. And that's an important part today when we consider the jury pool and we consider how people think about this case, because that matters. Now, I'm going to tell you about some misconduct by judges, by law firms, big law firms. And if we had a lawyer here, and Jason, you're the only thing we've got, so you might want to venture an opinion.
Sure.
You're the only trained legal person we have here. And that is, there are behaviors that are proper. There are behaviors that are unethical. There are misconduct, maybe even criminal. I'm going to tell you about some of those that were done by a law firm, all documented. And then there are behaviors that are in the middle. They're gray. And I think they depend upon intent. And as far as I'm concerned, you want to stay away from gray behaviors because, it's so important when you're dealing with a case, when you have a case before the courts or you're involved in trying one, that your behavior is exemplary. You cannot be misperceived or seen to be engaging in misconduct or unethical behavior. And that's why, even if there are gray areas, lawyers, accused, people involved in civil lawsuits should stay away from them. And what are those gray areas? Well, I'm going to tell you some clear areas of misconduct. But there's also a reality. We've just spoken about 4 pages of headlines that these men are terrible people, evil, conspired, they've got weapons. It's not evidence, but there it is.
Mm.
If I write something that's positive about them on my web space, maybe I might have people look at it, read it, and think differently. If Granny had another page instead of her Facebook page that mirrored the Facebook content, but was a real website, maybe it would get a little higher ranking. I don't know. There are experts around here, and I think, Jason, you're one.
Mm-hmm. I'm a tech guy too, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think so. So that's not advice. It's just an observation. But now I'm going to paste in something, and if you would take us to this article and display it, I'm going to talk about how I caught a federal Court of Canada judge in very serious misconduct.
So before you jump to that, can I just ask Trevor one quick question, and then we'll get back to this page as
a matter of fact, go ahead. Let some other people speak, because this is a long story, and I've been monopolizing the time.
Yeah, no, but
Granny,
I think
how are you?
Trevor, I just wanted to ask you, going on what Donald said there, where are you located? You don't have to give me your GPS location, but which province?
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm in British Columbia.
Okay, you're in BC. So how much information did you pick up on the media over the last year about this, and how much of this case do you know at this stage? Because I want to show everybody how little there is out there. So what is your current understanding of this case?
Sure, Jason. Yeah, thank you. Actually, about a month ago, I just kind of triggered. It's like, I wonder where those guys are. So when this show came up, I was very thankful for you putting it together and for Granny doing her work, because I hadn't heard about anything since the emergency inquiry, which I watched, and there was just that story, and then I had heard nothing. And we all get caught up in our lives and our busy what we're doing and what we think that is important, but the important thing is that we think about others eventually. We're always about we can always think about ourselves, but to think about others is about being a human being. So I was like, I haven't heard anything, and I started looking around, and I came up and found you guys, and it's like, okay, here's some news. And so thank you, because I was pretty shocked to hear that they were still in custody, given what we know about how the justice system can pull people out and keep people in. I was concerned about what the truth was, and who was controlling the truth, which gets back to what you were referring to, Jason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what I'm hearing a lot of people say, the exact same thing. First, you mentioned you were surprised that they're still incarcerated. Yeah. And you're not getting much information at all. Like Donald pointed out, if you even start to search for it, the first thing you see is murderer, plot, guns. Like he's right. You don't see anything about the men, where they came from. You would think that these guys were terrorists and horrible people all along, but they're not. Not 3 of them didn't even have any charges of any kind, right? So yeah, thank you very much for confirming. Because even in Alberta, we had nothing going on at all. And Granny, I'm just going to throw you on quickly and ask you, as you're doing your Facebook page, as you're building this out, are you also getting a lot of people pushing back and trying to bring a negative narrative to you and kind of trying to diminish your attempts to bring forward, stories of the men?
To be honest, no. I don't get a lot. I know that sounds strange because you would think something like this, I get the odd one. And some seem very staged and very, they just want to get in there and stir people up in the comments. Now over on TikTok, and I am not a social media platform guru. Oh, I can't even say that word.
Guru, yeah.
But I throw things on TikTok. I throw things on Instagram. I throw things on Twitter just to try and get it out there. Now, I find TikTok is probably the place you get the most pushback. And
Okay.
that's it.
Yeah, the young liberals are on TikTok, so for sure. Absolutely. Okay, Donald, I got well, first, that was good news that you're not getting a lot of pushback and a lot of negativity. I can tell you that on Twitter, there was 2 people that popped into my DMs, highly negative, and they were repeating the same message, both of them. And I also saw that message other places, almost verbatim, like they were copying and pasting that message everywhere. So yeah, I think there's 1 or 2 bad actors out there that are going around, whether they're genuine people that actually think justice is being served, or if they're just somebody who's trying to make that narrative sound right. I'm not sure. But yeah, there's only a couple. I got a lot more attacks on Dr. Mackay. Okay, so talking about the vaccine truth, a lot more bots out there because I guess Big Pharma has bigger pockets than the RCMP. So maybe we'll go with that. Okay, Donald, I'm ready with your page. I'm about to pull it up here.
Sure.
There you go, buddy.
There we go. Federal Court of Canada secretly uses internet to investigate people and cases appearing before judges. Now, that's kind of a neutral headline, but here's what really happened. By the way, that's Dr. Ed Cole, former Commissioner of Cybersecurity to President Obama. And he looked at the evidence. He looked at the IP numbers and lists and visitor records of my website and confirmed in an affidavit everything I'm going to tell you. We were in court, and the judge was sitting there right in open court with his laptop and typing into his laptop. And I thought, that's funny. I wonder what he's doing. Well, I found out what he was doing because I went to my visitor records on my website and found that the judge, well, at least someone from that particular court, had at that exact moment been on my website looking through it. And why is that so bad? Well, if we have judges, just like jurors, who are prohibited and who have gone to jail for considering evidence that is not before the court, if judges and their staff secretly collect information online about cases, not just from my website, but from other websites about what's being said about me in the newspapers and everything like that, and they research that, and they don't tell anyone, it's really them conducting a secret trial. They are looking at evidence that no one else knows they looked at. No one else sees it. No one else gets a chance to refute it. And that's the problem with that. And we caught judges and their staff from various courthouses coming to my website. And I think, Jason, you can probably give us a more technical explanation than I'm going to give. But essentially, there are ways, if you have a website, not sure about a Facebook page, where you can see the IP number, Internet Protocol number, of people or organizations who are coming to you. Sometimes that doesn't tell you a lot. Somebody on Rogers Communications came to your website. Well, good for you. There's about 7 million customers. But sometimes it says Coca-Cola or Durham Regional Police or Federal Court of Canada in Oshawa. And then you're able to see patterns. Or Castles Brock Law Firm. Ah, they're the people on the other side. And they came to my website. Okay? So you can see all this kind of knowledge. Now, when we accept that this is misconduct for a judge to do this or a jury member, we're into a serious area here. So we should be looking to document misconduct like this. And the other thing that often happens too is in large lawsuits that are worth a lot of money, or people have a stake in them, or there are things that will trigger, like for instance, perhaps a lawsuit about vaccination, or a lawsuit about, let's say, the Toronto Maple Leafs. And here's what I documented. I documented during a lawsuit that somebody from a very large international law firm with branches throughout Canada and the world that were dealing with a certain case involving the Toronto Maple Leafs, that they came to websites and left comments that were threatening. I documented that in a number of cases that I've been investigating, that I've been involved in. And why is that important? Well, you know, at a certain point, that becomes obstruction of justice, perhaps. Maybe it becomes threatening a witness. So it's like the Wild West out there. And if you have a method and the time of documenting who is reading your materials, you can see sometimes misconduct. You can document it. And as we did here, if you go to the next article, this ended up in the Financial Post. This is my case. And, you know, the headline, judges shouldn't be doing their own research about the dispute or the parties involved. And there we are. Actually, that was the other URL I gave you, but it doesn't matter. It's all about the same. The other one's from the Financial Post, I think, but it doesn't matter. All right. So this is serious misconduct. Now, we documented it numerous times in my cases with numerous judges and court personnel, because my case was about misconduct of judges, misconduct of lawyers, serious criminal misconduct. Criminal, who says that? Well, the commissioner of the OPP put an affidavit in saying that this conduct was criminal by the lawyers. So this is important to document this. Now, earlier on, we heard Granny say that she hadn't had much pushback about this case on Facebook. And you, Jason, mentioned that you haven't had much pushback about this case. Now, that could indicate that nobody's paying attention. Nobody knows about it. That's, you know, probably a factor there. But the other fact might be that people kind of agree, not with the headlines. They know something's very off about this case. And so they aren't, as we've seen with some other cases and vaccines, it's almost like it's not dividing into sides here. There's a narrative that the media is pushing, but I don't think Canadians are buying it. And the more they know about this case, I think the more they'll think that there's something very wrong with the foundation of this case. And that's my opinion.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand on that there, Donald, because you're right. The judges and the jury and even the lawyers aren't supposed to be even in the court pulling up information. But you're kind of actually taking us on a track to a really big problem. This has been coming up a lot since the POEC, and Trevor, I think you'll be aware of this as well. Something called judicial notice. So what judicial notice is meant to be is pieces of fact or information or knowledge that is just so overwhelmingly common and so overwhelmingly accepted that you don't need to prove it. So for example, rain is wet. You don't really need to bring in a scientist to let people understand that rain is wet. That would be an example of that. The reason judicial notice exists is because Donald's 100% correct. Everything in front of the judge is supposed to be going through the procedure of evidence. There's a way to bring it in. There's a way to challenge it. There's a way to dispute it. If it becomes real and accepted and turns into an exhibit, then the judge is supposed to be able to consider it, not before that. So this is why judicial notice was created, to create a mechanism for simple things that are currently common that people completely understand, like the rain is wet, to be able to be used by the judge without having to be proven as good evidence or anything like that. The problem with this is, on its surface, it sounds great. Sure, we don't want to have a whole bunch of expert witnesses come in to just lay down fundamental facts that are common. However, this is being used way more than it should be, and it's being pointed to as discretion by the judge to bring in any facts. So one thing that we saw during the POEC, during the Tamara Lynch bail hearing and conditions, there was a trial about her, or there's a hearing about her bail conditions being breached. The judge took judicial notice that the lawyer was not in the room. That's not what judicial notice is supposed to be for. Because you should have to prove that the lawyer was not in the room or not present, or the other side is able to show it. But this is where I think there's a lot of trouble, Donald, and I'll turn to you next, Trevor, as well, in the judicial system right now, because this is a power that judges have. It's on the books, and it's broad and it's vague, because it says judicial notice is a rule of law of evidence that allows a fact to be introduced into evidence if the truth of that fact is so notoriously or well known or so authoritatively attested that it cannot reasonably be doubted. That last part there, cannot reasonably be doubted. That's too broad, and that's allowing judges to kind of just say, well, yeah, I don't see him in the picture, therefore I'm taking judicial notice that there was nobody in the room. So that's getting way too broad and being, I would say, abused. I would say even abused by the judicial system. Trevor, are you aware of judicial notice, and what's your take on how we're seeing it being used, especially in the POEC as well? Sorry, Trevor, I have to mute you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm here.
Yep.
So I think what we're all aware of through the COVID crisis is how the government, through many forms, media, the legal system, the executive, parliament, they all play a part in controlling the narrative of what we hear and what they discuss and what they bring up. So that's my concern, is I can see that there is a control of the narrative, a political control of the narrative in this case. And that to me is the biggest concern. I see these people in jail still. I hear nothing about them. Part of being in a democracy is that we have an open court principle that the public has a right to know what's happening in our legal system, so that we can observe it and comment and criticize and discuss it and have ideas about it. We don't have that because we don't trust what's being told to us, what the evidence is presented to us in the media. We just, through all this system, we've realized that we can't trust the powers that are telling us what is real and what is not real, because they're being manipulated, and we're aware of that now, and that is a big problem for our democracy, and that's what we're really fighting for these men here, is how should we judge these people? They're human beings, they're fellow residents of Canada, but we don't know anything about them. Why are the police putting them in jail? How is the judges going to judge them fairly? We're just not aware of. And why are they still in prison after 400 days? We just don't know. And so how, as citizens, is this the way we treat fellow citizens? That's my concern here. Thank you once again, Granny, for speaking out on behalf of these men. They don't have a voice, and that's a concern.
Absolutely. And other than people like Granny, which is not very many of them, not a lot of people are asking for it. They're not pushing for it. Like, here's also part of the problem. It's also our responsibility as the public to also stand up and complain when things are not right and really be vocal about it. And there's not many people doing that. They're not saying, we demand transparency, we demand information, we demand answers. That's not really happening other than people like Granny here. So Granny, I'm going to turn to you quickly here. Have you had some trouble with, like, for example, has judicial notice come up? Have that term come up before? Is it being used at all? And what is your take on the court side, without getting into anything that can get anybody in trouble, the court side on how they're reviewing evidence and listening to arguments?
I've said from day one, I don't talk a lot about the details of court, obviously, for good reason. I'm more about the awareness of the men and about the fundraising. There's lots going on in the courtroom. It's not idle, that's for sure. We're watching the video statements of the men right now, and they're quite emotional to watch. I find these to be very personal. I find that the men are very vulnerable, being sleep deprived and scared. It's hard to watch, but they are filing applications as we speak. There's lots happening that we don't share for good reason.
Yep.
And things will happen. When you build a foundation on lies, it's eventually going to crumble, but it takes a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of patience. And unfortunately, it takes 4 men being in jail for 500 days. And I always use that term. It's remand jail. It's different. And people are trying to get that through their heads, that the remand jail is not a good place. It's torture. It literally is. So I always try to share what the men are going through. I don't talk a lot about the case.
Nope, and that's fair enough, and we want you to keep it that way. We don't want to jeopardize anything. The defense has their plan, they have their strategy. We want to support them, not get in the way of that. Okay, so Donald, we're going to go back to you now, and we actually have a question for you, so I'll give that question to you, and then we can continue with you. And you're muted, and if you want to unmute, you should be good. Or did I mute you? There you go, Donald. All right, so the question's from John. John is our question maker. He's got a whole bunch of them, but one for Big D. At what point do you believe the Coutts Four have become political prisoners, incarcerated outside the limitations of the criminal code? So what point do they become accused and then turn into political prisoners?
I think they always were political prisoners. And I don't come to that thought and that understanding lightly. I've looked at all the context and everything I've been able to find online. And as I talked about in the last couple of shows, we are a nation that gives bail to accused cop killers. We give bail to people who are accused of lighting multiple forest fires that destroyed homes and lives and vast tracts of forest. We give bail to a person who has committed firearms offenses, and then he goes out a few weeks later and shoots a police officer to death. So we give bail to everybody. Now, I've seen some comments online that have a misunderstanding. Someone said in one of the chats somewhere, maybe on my Twitter feed, the evidence must be pretty strong against these guys for them to hold them in jail until the trial and not give them bail. Well, the criteria on whether someone gets bail or not, the primary criteria is, are they a threat to reoffend immediately? Is there a danger to the community? And are they going to run away and try to avoid trial?
Correct.
Now, the strength of the evidence against them can impact those factors in the decisions. someone is charged with a firearms offense in Toronto, and he has 3 prior convictions, and there's a video of him shooting at someone taken. So it's likely that he might do it again if we let him out on bail. So this time we're not going to give him bail. Maybe. Sometimes they do. Or the other factor is, suppose he has a dual nationality. Suppose he's from Romania or Jamaica or the United States, and he hasn't been in the country long, and he doesn't own a house, or he doesn't have a job, he doesn't have family and friends here, no roots. It's likely, maybe, that if we let him out on bail and the charge is serious, he'll run back to the Philippines, China, wherever it is. So those are the types of criteria, and I would hope Jason and Trevor would jump in a little bit if there's anything I've forgotten.
Yeah, I will.
You know, but those are the main issues. However, what we have here is 4 men held for 500 days. Men who, to my knowledge, have roots in the community, children, jobs, business, and have not been in any trouble, certainly anything like this. And in that context, and in the context that the whole narrative during the Freedom Convoy and the whole the lockdowns was all controlled by the media. In that context, it's my conclusion that these men are political prisoners.
Yeah, I agree.
So
and I'm going to, yeah, and I'll add a couple comments there. So even if you're a flight risk, they take away your passport. There needs to be a very overwhelming concern that they will, not that they could. They have to kind of establish that there's a very high likelihood that they will. The whole could and might and stuff is not even enough, and they will take away a passport. When it comes to dangerous, you have to be, again, overwhelming, almost like judicial notice, that it is no doubt that is a dangerous person to the society or to the public. And I'm going to give you a demonstration. So you mentioned even if there's video. Well, first, I want to say one thing about what you said. During the bail hearing, evidence isn't examined or challenged or tested. There's no time for it. You don't even have time to bring in experts or do anything. So the evidence itself is almost not even looked at. It's the charges, it's the accusation, it's what the Crown's bringing forward. There's a presumption, and this is what sucks in our system because it shouldn't be there, but there's a presumption that if the Crown brought it forward, they have a reason to. You don't even have to look at it. There's just a presumption there. So right away, our system is not innocent until proven guilty, because that right there demonstrates it. I do want to go back to the bail and how everybody gets it. Well, here we go. This happened during the convoy. This was during the same time. The man who drove his SUV through the crowd in Winnipeg, he ran over people. There's video. He was captured pretty quick, and he was given bail within a week. His conditions were, you can't come back to the city. That's it. So you can't bring your vehicle back to where you ran over people. And that was one of his conditions. And he was out on bail within a week. So yeah, not only if the video showing the crime, because he's running people over, so there's overwhelming evidence that he's a danger to the public because he's actually harmed somebody with his vehicle, he still got bail. He still got bail. And there wasn't even a dispute about it. It was within a week. He's released. There weren't people out there saying, lock him up, because this is our system. We GPS track. We have police that know where they are. And if they're really dangerous, they're basically like sex offenders where they're registered wherever they are. So they know who they are, where they are. In Canada, innocent until proven guilty is the fundamental right that's being completely ignored here, Donald. Because if it wasn't, they would be out. Because even if there's overwhelming, and you can say charges. So the police said, okay, we've got 3 undercover cops. We have testimony. We have tape recordings, we have everything. Even if they presented that to the judge still has to weigh whether or not there's a high likelihood, not even a high likelihood that they would run, or a high likelihood, not could, harm the public. And neither one of those are present in this at all. And we also have John again bringing up a good point about bail. Tamara Lynch was granted bail and released due to a historic amendment to the Canadian Criminal Code, limiting incarceration time for Aboriginal persons. The Coutts Four do not have the same option. So because Tamara has some Aboriginal blood, there's an extra protection for her. So even on bail, Donald, we're not even fair and equal on it. I'm going to throw it back to you to continue what you're doing there.
Sure. So, okay, I believe we've established in all the narratives that these four men are being held for political reasons.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know if the judge looked at the internet and saw all those articles. He may well have, or she may well have. But regardless of all that, it's so obvious that they're being held, and they're being held is a political act. It's a political decision. You can't convince me otherwise. And we look at the narrative. I told the story of how we discovered and put evidence before the court that federal court judges were improperly, unethically, maybe even to the extent of misconduct, looking and gathering evidence online about cases that were before them, secret evidence that no one knew about. How do we know that? Well, the IP numbers led back to each court and the court where it was being held. So what did the Federal Court of Canada do when we revealed that most serious misconduct? Did they put out a notice to all the judges, a reminder to stop them doing this? They changed the system so that all federal courts now, and the Federal Court of Canada, all the judges' internet run through a vast pool of federal IP addresses that are no longer attributed to the court or to specific courthouses. So they changed it to prevent citizens from knowing if the judge is looking up evidence about their case improperly. But that system that they have in place sometimes failed. And I've proven it, and still we see in various cases that I've been involved in, including my own after all these years, my case is long settled, long gone. We still see justice, judicial courts coming to my website, looking at my articles about my case and other cases. So this still goes on, but the point I'm making is when the judges and the justice system found out about it, their response was to just take away the evidence or make it more difficult for Canadians to find out if this improper conduct is continuing. They didn't stop the conduct. They just took away our ability to properly document it. How
Yeah,
about
and
that?
we've seen things like that. So during the POEC, because of people like Viva Fry and Zot and others, they were recording and streaming, and because of that, the government didn't respond by saying, "Hey, good job showing the truth." They created a bill called C-11, so they can start controlling whether or not that stuff is still online and whether or not they can get a button with the YouTubes of the world and turn things off. So you're 100% right, Donald. The government's response to being caught isn't usually, okay, you got me, let's clean my hands. It's to find a way to not get caught a second time. They learned those lessons and they're very good at that. Monica says here, sounds like the government judicial is using the equivalent of a VPN so we can't see. Yep. ExpressVPN or whatever. They're masking their IP address. And Monica, I wouldn't even be surprised if they used the Tor network for some of this to really make it very difficult to track them. And then John had another comment here. Oh no, sorry, this is an old comment. My bad. So Donald, if you don't mind, we're going to kind of wrap up because we're getting close to our hour here, and we're going to throw it over to Granny if she wants to make any comments. And Granny, if you don't mind, kind of reach out to the friends and family if they want to be on Friday to reach out to you and maybe let them know how to do that.
You bet I will. The families will come forward and they will speak, obviously, about their sons or their husband, and share who they are and how they're doing. They'd be happy to be on your platform. The message I have for people is we need to keep their mental health in check right now. 500 days is a long time. And like I said, the letters have helped. I will post the addresses again on Alberta Political Prisoners page. I feel we need to start a campaign, and maybe it needs to just say, because they all have to be handwritten to get through to all 4 men. Now, you could just write on the letter, I see you, and I know you're out there. Like, just let them know. You don't need a big, long letter like Jason said before. Just write, I see you, and we're here. Just let them know you're there. And they know that there's many, but I think they physically need to see it to help their mental health.
Excellent. Excellent. We'll keep getting that word out, and we'll keep asking people to do that. So yes. Trevor, I'm going to go to you now. Maybe you can kind of close up by letting us know from your perspective how what we're doing here today, putting this together, how you think this kind of maybe changes the narrative and changes the tide of it to assist.
Sure. So, we all know that the powers of the government are immense. I mean, they can incarcerate us, they can judge us, they can make laws on different things. So they have a lot of control over the citizens. And part of the balancing act of that is between Parliament, the executive, like the Prime Minister, and the judicial. And they're all supposed to be separate and balancing the powers of each other to control that power over the citizen. Parliament is supposed to speak for us and protect the people. So what we see here is a mixing of the powers of the executive with the RCMP, with the judicial, and getting into the political realm. And you're seeing all those powers being brought to bear on people that have comment on the political system. And that is pretty unfair balance when you have this amazing, powerful force being brought to bear on people that want to comment on it. And that's the entire problem with the emergency inquiry, is that people are seeing all this evidence and going, well, this isn't balanced. This isn't fair representation of the facts. Something's not adding up. And ultimately, the people in a democracy are judging how we're being judged. And we're seeing that it's not fair, it's not equal, and we know something's not right, and we want to change it. And getting back to the fact that these people are human beings, they had a comment, who knows what is real, what's fact, what the RCMP, maybe that photograph was from somewhere else, who we don't know. So we want to know more details as citizens. We want to care about people that live in our communities, and we want to see fairness. And we're not seeing it. And that's really, thank you very much, Granny, for speaking out and talking. And yes, we can help our fellow citizens get fairness. That's our responsibility.
Excellent. And as Trevor was saying there, Donald, there's checks and balances. It's supposed to be balanced. And the media is supposed to play a really strong role in that. Because they're supposed to be the transparent ones. They're supposed to make it transparent. And when they fail us, we're not left with much there, Donald. So thank you very much for taking us through some of that. And I'm going to give you the last comments on evidence, the judges, and how we have to navigate this one carefully.
I think the media is no longer anything more than a mouthpiece of the government. We've seen that again and again and again. And of course, they're subsidized to hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars when you throw in the CBC. And we see that we can't trust the media. All we get is the government narrative. And in this case, the government and the police and the media are in lockstep. I'd like to think that we can break that lockstep and put out there a balanced picture. These men deserve bail.
Mm-hmm.
There's no argument for keeping them in. They're political prisoners.
Absolutely. And then to all the people that have been commenting on this as, they're going to get a trial, they're going to get their stuff. That's true. That's true. They're going to get their trial. We're going to be hearing some of the evidence. But entrapment is a particular thing in the legal world, and people don't seem to understand what that means. Entrapment means when the police or authorities themselves create a situation and cause somebody to commit a crime and then bust them on that crime. Somebody online said, hey, so if a police officer goes up to a drug dealer and buys drugs, is that entrapment? No, it's not. It's not entrapment because the drug dealer is still already committing a crime. It's entrapment when, I don't know, hypothetically speaking, a couple police officers hand you a bag of guns and then arrest you for that bag of guns. That would be entrapment. So we're going to be keeping an eye on the law here. We'll be keeping an eye on the evidence, and we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on the truth here. So thank you very much again, Granny. We'll see you again tomorrow. Trevor, thanks for joining us. We'll bring you back again another day. I really appreciate hearing your opinion, especially because you're kind of removed from it, so you're more of the public side. So thank you very much, Trevor. Appreciate that. And as always, Donald, you're a star, and you are the best. So thank you all very much. We'll see you all tomorrow. And Trevor, thank you again. We'll see you online. Well, folks, that's day 3 of our coverage, but it's day 500. And to translate that to Trevor time, that's 1,500 meals, right? He was counting his meals, so that's 1,500 meals. That's a lot. Trevor, we got you, Chris, and Jerry. Looking forward to hearing from your family on Friday. I believe Chris C's mother's coming. I believe there might be a wife we're trying to connect with and some friends as well. And if you are friends and family, reach out to me on Twitter. You can DM me there. Reach out to Granny on the Facebook page. You can leave messages there. And we'll get in contact with you and we will get you a link. So as Granny said, write a letter. It could be just a paragraph. You can write tweets, 180 characters or 240 characters or whatever we're at now. And if you can do that, you can send a small message to these gentlemen as well. Check my Twitter, check Granny's Facebook page. You'll get the address. You can send it. The numbers for the gentlemen are down here. You'll need that when you're sending the letter. And just get it to them. Hi, we love you. We're thinking about you. Stay strong. Anything will help. Handwrite it, white paper, send it with no stickers. It will get through. Thank you all very much. This is a great day. We'll see you tomorrow on day 501. Okay, 501. So we'll be talking some more about life in incarceration, especially the remand centers. As Granny mentioned, it's tough. It's tough in there. And so we're going to have a pastor who actually works in there come and talk to us about that. So thank you all very much. Remember, we all love you, and God bless.